The Spider Girl, a terrifying tale. Silent Hill, nestled in the Appalachian Mountains, has always been a place with a dark secret. Abandoned mines, empty houses, and dense forests hid terrible secrets, whispered only in the dark corners of taverns. One rainy night, Emily, confined to a wheelchair after a tragic accident, sat in her room when she heard a bell. Surprised, as no one expected her on this bad weather, she rolled to the door. On the doorstep, wet from the rain, sat a small black spider with a tiny bell on its leg. Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She was seized with a terror she could not explain. From that day on, Emily's life turned into a living hell. She was haunted by nightmares where black spiders crawled all over her body, whispering terrifying words. Her room was filled with shadows, and at night she heard the bell ringing from dark corners. Emily began to lose touch with reality. Her thoughts were confused and her body was weak. Her father, consumed by grief and alcoholism, did not notice the changes in his daughter. One night, Emily woke up to the unbearable ringing of the bell. The room was filled with black spiders crawling out of the cracks in the walls. They surrounded her, their eyes burning with fury. Emily screamed in horror, feeling a terrible force coursing through her body. Her arms and legs twisted, her skin darkened, and hideous spider legs erupted from her back. The Spider Girl was born. Emily, transformed into a hideous monster, broke out of the house. She was consumed by a thirst for revenge for all her suffering. She wandered the streets of Silent Hill at night, looking for victims. Her sharp claws ripped flesh, and her poisonous fangs injected a terrible venom. The bodies of the unfortunate victims disappeared without a trace, leaving only bloody traces on the cobblestones. The city was gripped by panic. People locked themselves in their homes, praying for salvation. Sheriff McLean, haunted by fear and grief after the death of his own daughter, took up the investigation. He found an abandoned mine where, according to rumors, horrible rituals were performed. There, in the darkness, he found the terrible truth about the Spider Girl. Sheriff McLean, armed only with faith and desperation, descended into the depths of the mine to confront the horrible monster. He knew that this was his only chance to save the city. A fierce battle broke out in the darkness of the mine. The sheriff fought the monster, using everything at his disposal. He knew that if he lost, the Spider Girl would destroy the entire city. Sheriff McLean, gasping for breath in the humid air of the mine, fought the hideous creature. His eyes, accustomed to the darkness, could distinguish the glowing eyes and clicking fangs of the Spider Girl. Fear gripped his heart, but the thought of his dead daughter gave him the strength to resist the monster. Suddenly, the sheriff noticed an old lantern hanging on the wall. A lighter flared in his hand, and the dim light illuminated the eerie cave. The walls were covered with creepy frescoes depicting rituals of spider worship. In the center of the cave stood an old stone bowl, from which crawled countless small spiders. This was the source of the Spider Girl's power. The sheriff realized he had to destroy it. He threw a burning rag into the bowl. Flames erupted, and the screams of spiders filled the cave. The Spider Girl screamed in pain as her connection to the source of power weakened. With the last of his strength, the sheriff used an old iron crowbar that was lying against the wall. He aimed at the thin, web-like membrane that connected the Spider Girl to the bowl. With a deafening crack, the crowbar broke the membrane. The Spider Girl screamed, her body trembling. With each second, she shrank, losing her hideous power. Finally, everything was quiet. All that was left of the Spider Girl was a trembling figure of Emily, her body human again. She looked at her hands, which were no longer spider legs, with tears in her eyes. The sheriff approached her cautiously, his face twisted with a mixture of relief and horror. He knew she would need help, but he also knew that the current Emily was not the same girl he once knew. Sheriff McLean carried Emily out of the mine into the fresh air. It was dawn, and the first rays of the sun were breaking through the clouds. The city was starting to wake up, unaware of the terrible battle that had taken place in the night, nor of the horrors that lurked in the depths of the mine. At the hospital, Emily recounted everything that happened to her. She spoke of the nightmares, the spider with the bell, and the horrifying transformation. The doctors, skeptical, attributed it to the aftermath of her accident and post-traumatic stress disorder. But Sheriff McLean didn't believe it. He knew what he had seen, and that the city had been on the brink of destruction. He swore to Emily he would uncover the truth about the mine and the spider worship. Sheriff McLean began his investigation. He sifted through old archive records that spoke of disappearances and rumors of satanic rituals performed in the mine years ago. His search led him to a secluded farm on the outskirts of town. There he found an old farmer who had once worked in the mine. The farmer told him about a secret cult that worshipped a spider-like deity and performed sacrificial rituals. The farmer said the cult believed the spider was the key to immortality and endless power. They used spiders in their rituals, hoping to transfer their qualities to themselves. According to the farmer, the cult was destroyed many years ago when a cave-in blocked the mine. However, the story of the spider with the bell piqued the sheriff's curiosity. He remembered Emily mentioning a similar spider before her transformation. Sheriff McLean returned to the hospital to warn Emily. He told her about the cult and their rituals, and also about the spider with the bell. With horror on her face, Emily confessed to him that the spider had returned. She felt its presence, its whispers in her mind. She was afraid it would take control of her again. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, the sheriff decided they needed to return to the mine. They had to find the source of the spider and destroy it for good. Emily, confused and terrified, agreed to return to the mine. They armed themselves with flashlights, gasoline canisters, and a desperate prayer to make it out alive this time. The descent into the mine was horrifying. The darkness seemed to cling to them like a shroud, and every sound echoed through the damp walls. Emily felt her fear escalate as the spider whispered for her to return, to succumb to its will. The sheriff offered her encouragement, reminding her that she was stronger than the spider. They reached the cave where Emily transformed, but the source of the spiders was gone. In its place, only old cobwebs hung, and a rusty bell lay on the floor. Suddenly, a giant spider lunged out of the darkness. Its body was covered in sticky slime, and its eyes burned with malice. This was the spider god the cult worshipped. The battle was epic. The sheriff fired at the spider with his revolver, but the bullets bounced off its thick carapace. Emily fought her own terror, trying not to be controlled by the spider. She remembered the farmer's words about the spider's immortality. Perhaps the source of its power wasn't the bull, but itself. Gathering the remnants of her strength, Emily grabbed the gasoline and doused the spider. The sheriff lit a rag, and the cave erupted in flames. The spider shrieked in pain, its body writhing in the inferno. Emily felt the connection to its sever, her mind finally clear. The battle raged on, until only a charred husk remained of the spider. The sheriff and Emily, gasping for breath, crawled out of the mine, greeted by the first rays of dawn. The town of Silent Hill would never know of the horrors that transpired beneath the earth, but Emily did. She would be haunted by the memories, but she also knew she had conquered the darkness. She was no longer the spider girl. She was Emily, and she had survived. The end.